We live. We live. It's late nights at Warner Park. I'm Ashel St. Patrick Hewitt, co-host of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. But with me as ever today on the Late Night at Warner Park show is the man Static. I don't even know how long it's been since we did episode 3, you know. I know it's been a while, though. So for anyone who's in the chat, we have been discussing in the background. We planned to do a show a couple of days ago, and the games at CPL come so thick and fast that really what we've realized is our only real option to do these shows are on the rest days, which are Friday and the Monday. And we just couldn't really fit the shows in on Friday, just gone. And then there was more games on Saturday. So in the end, we said, you know what? Let's just try fit one in just before the start of the 7:30 UK time game, which is TKR versus the Talawars. But what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple of specials on this, and we've got another show planned for tomorrow. So if you're like, I can see in the comments, here we go. So Contact says late nights at Warner Park should be every Wednesday and Sunday. This gap feels too big. We hear you, man. We hear you. But we do have a show planned for today and one tomorrow on the rest day. But getting straight into it, because obviously the TKR Jamaica Talawars game begins in about 25 minutes. And what we wanted to do, myself and Static, was look at the top run scorers in CPL so far. And obviously there's a narrative going on right now because the Kings just beat the Patriots for the second time in 48 hours. And Roston Chase is now gone to number 1. So what Static and I are going to do is we're going to look at the top 5 run scorers in CPL this year, West Indians, obviously, and see if that means there is a chance for any of them to break into the West Indies World Cup squad. Now, what I will say before I start and before Static and I start, the West Indies World Cup squad, I believe, is only going to be 18 names maximum. Now, the ICC said that there can be expanded squads, right? Which generally means what? Maybe 22, 23. But that includes like support staff and so on and so forth. And the ICC said that the ICC said that any extra players that teams bring have to come out of their own funding and their own budget. The ICC is not going to give them any extra money to take extra players. Now, for a team like West Indies, where we don't have surplus income, that means we're not going to go all out. That's my personal opinion. We're not going to go all out to try and bring a squad of 23, 24, 25, whatever it might be. So I think we're only working with a squad of 18, similar to the kind of number of 18 that we had through the summer. So when we talk about these players upcoming, bear in mind that there aren't that many places available in the first place. And any name that we say should go, if we're going to say one, someone's got to come out. So do bear that in mind. But let's get straight into it, Static, because I'm wary of the second game. Quickly say hi to some people, though. Mass88, we see you. Hey. Mr. Lover says Rutherford was disappointing today. I blame Asif Ali for that, not Rutherford, but that's another story. Contact. Roston Chase has been a monster so far. The way his strike rate has improved. And thank you, Contact and Mr. Lover. Chase should go to World Cup. He's the Marlon Samuelson team. And he is, in fact, the first person we are going to look at today. So, Static, the number 1 West Indian batsman and the number 1 batsman in the tournament overall right now is Roston Chase. 6 games, 241 runs, a strike rate of 158. It's suffice to say, for people who don't watch CPL, they'll be shocked by this. And I think a lot of people will be like, well, Roston's got to go. And in fairness to Roston, he was good for the Kings last year as well. Strike rate wasn't that good. It wasn't 158. It was like 110 maybe. But this is his second good CPL in a row. But what we're seeing this year is him really going at a good lick in terms of strike rate. And this is before we even talk about his bowling, but we're not going to get into his bowling. Static, where do you stand on, and remember, Static, we're only looking at this purely in terms of, is it enough to make him come into World Cup contention? Off you go.
Yeah, I think it's no surprise that he's done well again this year. Last year he was batting at 115, but that was the league average. No one was going at 140, 150, right? And this time with shorter boundaries, what we've seen is he can also hit sixes. It's not just ground strokes, conventional strokes. He can also hit sixes. I personally don't think he can do any much better than this, right? If there's one additional batsman that we're going to take, then it has to be Roston. I know we're going to talk about Sherfane soon, but right-hander, bowls off spin. If you add those secondary skills in, I don't think he can do any better than this to stake a claim. The question is who goes out, and that has to be a top order batsman. So probably Shimron and probably Gale going by performances.
When you say go out, do you mean go out of the starting 11? You don't mean go out of the squad?
Out of the starting 11, right?
Right. So are you saying that you would be considering Chase based off this CPL to go into the starting 11?
I wouldn't personally, but I can see the reasoning behind that. If they want to go in with an extra right-hander, take Shimron out, break up Gale and Puran being left-handers, I can see the rationale behind that. Jason hasn't been in good form, so he's probably not an option to break those guys up. And Dwayne Bravo just picked up an injury, so I don't know if he's someone who you can rely upon to start every single game. This is used as the breaker, so that's where I think Roston probably adds some kind of value.
That's really interesting now and this just goes to show people, because Static and I haven't spoken about, he doesn't even know who I'm putting up. We haven't even spoken about anything. He knows that we were going to talk about batsmen, but we haven't spoken on our opinions. Now, me personally, I wouldn't have Chase. I can see an argument to take him though, just because it's in UAE. The reasons not to take him, the reasons either not to take him or to take him and not start is actually he's got no international T20 experience, and CPL is very different to international T20 or a World Cup T20, and it would be a very big call to not only take Roston but then take him and put him straight in the team. That said, I agree with Static that the problem for the West Indies is there are too many left-handers in the top 4. And there's an argument to say Simmons doesn't even go to the World Cup. There's an argument to say that Simmons doesn't open at the World Cup. And so they could conceivably have a situation, West Indies, where they go Lewis, put Gale back to open. Don't know if that would happen, but I'm saying that. Hetmeyer at 3, Puran at 4. That's 4 left-handers in a row. So there is a reason and there is a spot for a floating right-hander somewhere in that team. At the moment, Jason and Bravo seem to have that role, but I have not been impressed with Jason in this CPL. Jason, to me, has played himself out of the starting 11. Yeah. That's my personal take on matters. So I can see how Roston comes into the argument. And as Static says, it's the secondary skills that he offers, which probably promotes his cause even more so. But let's just look at what some people are saying. Where are we? Khadija says he's not going. Chase will not be playing T20 internationals.
Yeah, I can see that.
Contact says, I don't think Chase gets in. We've never seen him at the international stage, and throwing him in the World Cup side would be a lot. Arthur says,
true. And it's also because we've played 11 or 12 T20s with a certain formula. I don't think they want to break that all of a sudden.
Yeah. So somebody messaged me on our Twitter handle and made a very good point. And he said Roger Harper is a conservative selector, and it would seem alien for Harper to suddenly put Chase in, having had a squad of 18 all through the summer, and then just randomly turn to Chase and say, right, let's now experiment with Roston when there's no game. Well, apparently there's an Afghanistan tri-series, but in reality, there's no games to experiment with. So it would be a big call, I should say.
Chase is going to replace someone from the 18 we had. It would probably be Sinclair.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. Yes. Yeah. But then I would argue that's who Narayan's replacing. We're not talking about bowlers. Well, Narayan just gets in regardless. Narayan gets in. If we had to take 19, then Narayan gets in. But let's not go down the Narayan argument, because that's probably for tomorrow when we look at the bowlers. Before we go to the next batsman, just a few more comments from people, because I see you. Contact says Jason really has played himself out of the 11. Captaincy has taken a lot out of him, and he seems burnt out and scrambled. You know what, Contact? On our CPL podcast episode, the one when Ganga came on, I said to Darren Ganga, I don't think Jason should captain Barbados this year. And Darren said he thought they should probably still go with Jason. I thought they should have given it to Shea. Not because I'm saying Shea's a T20 player of any pedigree, but just because Shea's going to be captain of the ODI squad at some point in time after Pollard. So I just thought it made sense to have Barbados captained by someone else, but it's looking a bit rubbish for Barbados. But that's another episode down the line. Now, Static, number 2 is Evin Lewis, but we're not going to talk about him. I just wanted people to know that he is actually number 2 right now. So Evin Lewis is 236 runs, strike rate 148. We don't need to talk about him because obviously not. Do you know what we will just say on Evin Lewis, Static? I am really happy for him that he's got an IPL deal. And yeah. I think that's fully deserved. When all these IPL replacement players were coming in, I was like, why is no one taking Evin?
Yeah.
But do you want to just talk about Evin quickly and just IPL and why this is probably deserved for him?
Yeah, I've been saying I put this out as a tweet as well when Evin got his contract. I said those 2 years that he had, it was a bit of a dip after he got his first IPL contract. He was struggling against swing. He had some technical issues, but now he's worked them out. He's back to where he is, right? He's one of the best in the world. And I think this tournament I've run out of superlatives because today I think he got a bit of a rough decision. So he got it early. But yeah, I think his game is at a completely different level now. He's probably one of the biggest wickets in the CPL at this point.
100%, yeah. And if he goes in, is it Rajasthan who took him? I can't even remember. Yeah. Rajasthan, yeah. If he has a good half an IPL here, he's back in next year, regardless.
Yeah.
I'd argue that when it comes to IPL T20 openers, I'd have Evin in my top 10, no matter from around the world. Evin, to me, on form, he's got to be there.
But Nicholas Puran, Hetmeyer, all these guys are getting contracts, and that's where Lewis belongs because for me, he's in the same caliber as all of them.
Yeah, 100. My screen's got a minute there. Excuse me, people. I've messed up my screen here, which doesn't help. Right. Number 3, West Indian, the third West Indian, Sherfane Rutherford, 201 runs, strike rate 137. Asif Ali ran him out today. Ridiculous run out. Asif Ali is stinking out this whole tournament. I'm surprised St. Kitts are still persisting with him, if I'm honest. But that's another story for another day. Now, I'll give my opinion quickly, Static. I would take Sherfane as the backup engine room batsman. Now, for those who don't understand what we mean by that, we're calling the engine room 3 to 8. So that's just argument's sake. Hetmeyer, Puran, Pollard, Russell, Fabian. Sorry, 3 to 7. Sherfane doesn't get in the team ahead of any of them.
No.
But if one of them got injured or COVID or something like that, I have Sherfane as my backup blaster. What's your take on it?
I wouldn't take Sherfane this time simply because he's a left-hander, and until Gale makes way, which he won't at least this World Cup, I think Sherfane unfortunately has to sit out. But I'll say I've been very impressed with Sherfane, the way he's not just come out and hit sixes like he did for Guyana. He wants to bat at 5. He wants to control the innings. He has multiple gears. So I think given he lost his spot in the Guyanese team last year, I think he's been fantastic this year. And the moment Gale or Bravo, one of these guys, make way in the West Indies team, then I think he's done enough to say he's the first guy in when the senior players do give way at some point.
So that's interesting to me. And I agree with you in terms of, because everyone remember there's another World Cup next year in Australia. And I think everyone should remember that that's where it makes Static right. This World Cup is very much a swan song for Gale, for Bravo. Spots are opening up after this World Cup for the next gen to come through. Pollard should probably still have another World Cup in him. Russell will have another World Cup in him. But there will be spots. Simmons is probably gone. So there will be spots available for the next round in Australia in 2022. I'm surprised, though, that you wouldn't take Sherfane in reserve. I
take Sherfane in reserve because Obed's been injured off late. Fidel's been injured here and there. Cottrell's also been injury prone. So if I were taking reserves, they'd mostly be seamers for me.
Oh, okay. Okay. But then what happens if one of those gun batsmen in the middle get injured? What are you doing then?
I think we take one. And if you're taking one reserve batter, that would be Chase, right?
Oh, okay. Right. I see. Right. Sorry, go on.
we probably have one backup keeper as well, which Sherfane can't do. So I think that's where it gets a little clogged up. And that's why I said the fact that Chase also bowls off spin and that he's a right-hander, I think that probably puts him slightly above Sherfane at the moment.
That's really interesting. And people will put that one back to you, those who are watching live or those who come to watch this later on. So Static is saying if you take one batsman in reserve only, he takes Chase. I'm saying I take Sherfane. But I also see Static's argument that if it comes down to one or the other, I get why Static would go for Chase over Sherfane.
No, I understand that Sherfane's probably the better T20 player. You can argue that he's had as good a tournament as Chase purely as a batsman.
Yeah.
But I think at the moment, given Chase's secondary role, probably whether you like it or not, he's probably going to be the one.
Interesting. We throw that one back to you, people. You can discuss that. Throw your comments in. Remember, you don't have to comment live as well. You can comment in the chat below, and I'm sure one or both of us will come in with a comment. 4th place, Chandrapaul Hemraj, probably off the back of that 100 against, I can't even remember who now. Was it St. Kitts?
It was Barbados.
Barbados, sorry, of course, Barbados. So Chandrapaul Hemraj, 178 runs at a strike rate of 148. I feel like I've seen Chandrapaul Hemraj do this at least once in every tournament, but he never has a consistent run. So yes, Chandrapaul, and for those who don't remember, Chandrapaul has played for the West Indies in ODIs before, circa 2018, when we went to like Bangladesh and India. I think he was in that squad. He is a good player, but I just don't think he is anywhere consistent enough to warrant any kind of serious talk. Static.
Yeah, I think he gets to the 20 or 30 mark, he looks $1 million and then throws it away. So I think he's mostly a power play player. What happened the other day is he got 50 in the power play itself. So that really kickstarted his innings. But I think after the power play, I don't see much value in him. So
and I think what I'd like to see is something I saw you tweet, Static, similar to what you said about Aldine Smith and people like Romario Shepherd. There are a few West Indian players who I want to see other franchise tournaments start to pick them up.
Yeah.
Whether that be like an Afghan Premier League, obviously there's a situation in Afghanistan, but whether it be an Afghan Premier League or a Bangladesh League, a Sri Lanka League, I think some of these players need the experience of going elsewhere and not just playing CPL and occasionally lighting up in CPL just to expand their skill set.
Yeah.
And Chandrapaul Hemraj is probably one of them. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think we'll talk about Kennar Lewis next. But
yeah,
Sherfane, Hemraj, and Kennar Lewis were all three of them have been in the US when they're not playing cricket elsewhere.
Yeah.
All three of them have played in the minor league or whatever that is. They've also played other exhibition games and so on in the US. And all three of them are in this list we're discussing. So
yeah,
I'm not saying that's the highest quality tournament, etc. But they training, they're getting game time in, and the same thing's going to happen if they go to say Bangladesh or
Sri
Lanka, whatever that is. As they play more of the format, they're going to get more accustomed to it. So I think that's the bigger benefit than saying, hey, this is a high quality tournament where the game's going to go to the completely next level or something like that.
Yeah, 100%. It's not actually Kennar who's next. We'll end with Kennar, but Devon Thomas is actually the 5th highest West Indian scorer in the tournament. 161 runs, strike rate 98, which is, well, that's like a test match strike rate in T20 cricket. But there is an argument to say that Andre Fletcher's spot as the backup wicketkeeper to Pooran is on the threat. Devon Thomas is the highest scoring wicketkeeper in the tournament. Has he shown you enough in this tournament to not take Fletcher?
No, strike rate of 98, I don't take that seriously. No. Not when you're opening the batting. I think Fletcher looks worse than he is because of that horror summer that he had, right? So I don't think Fletcher's gonna go through a CPL batting at a strike rate of 98. Not at his worst, no. So for now, probably Fletcher. I was hoping Johnson Charles makes a better case for himself, but he's been a bit unlucky. He's been averaging 18 or something. So that's unfortunate because I thought if there was someone who was going to rival Fletcher's spot, that would be Charles. Charles also had a good PSL, if I remember correctly. So he would have been the guy I was looking at, but not Thomas now. I don't think so.
Do you know what, though? What I will say, and I think, yeah, a few people have said it. So Contact has said, where's Contact's comment? Devon Thomas has scored, but that strike rate's not good at all. However, runs are better than strike rate as an opening batsman. But Fletcher's 85. Yeah, Fletcher got that 85 or 50 odd. Basically, Fletcher's ceiling is higher. If Fletcher comes off, that's what he does. He might only come off once in every 10 innings, but if he comes off, he's winning a match with what he does. Whereas Devon Thomas isn't winning any matches with what he does. That said, I just think that Thomas at least has shown he's competent in this tournament. And I'm not talking about T20 cricket. Maybe there's a different role for him to play in West Indies cricket in another format somewhere. I don't know how, I don't know why, but he's shown to me his overall game, I think, has been okay.
Yeah.
But
no, that's a good point you make regarding ceiling, because when we're talking about a fringe player, it's more about the ceiling, because even if Pooran gets injured at some point, whoever, Thomas or Fletcher, they're going to play 1 or 2 games at best. And for those 1 or 2 games, you want to pick a batsman with a higher ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. Good point, Mr. Foots. Yes, his wicket-keeping hasn't been that good, in fairness. And actually, Fletcher's wicket-keeping has, largely speaking, been on point. I think Fletcher knows his positions on the threat. And the reality is, I do not see any other wicket-keeper in the tournament doing anything to threaten Fletcher's spot, in the team. That's the harsh reality. Right, last batsman. I know the second game's beginning in about 5 minutes, so we're going to do this one lastly. Kennar Lewis, who should be, I haven't even seen what the Jamaica team is yet, but I assume he's opening the batting. I assume Chadwick Walton is injured, but I'll go and have a look at that in a minute. Kennar Lewis. Let's talk about ceilings with Kennar Lewis. Static. 160 runs. Look at that strike rate. 176. Kennar Lewis isn't here for a long time, but he's definitely here for a good time. Now, I wonder, Static, if Kennar Lewis is another one. Wait, he's right-handed bat, isn't he? Right-handed bat.
Yeah.
To me, Kennar Lewis falls into that similar category as Rakeem Cornwall, where they don't stay long, but they maximize the time that they're there, which almost is what you want from a T20 opener. So if Kennar Lewis gets like 20 off 7, he's probably done his job in some senses. But he looks better than I've seen him before. He looks fitter. He looks a bit leaner. He's not playing reckless shots. They're actually quite clean T20 hits that I've seen in the innings so far. And I just wonder if he falls into that bracket you're talking about of the next cycle. Where's your stance on Kennar, Static?
Yeah, I think when I saw Kennar first in 2017, 2018, he was like Rakeem. He was a proper pinch hitter in the power play. He couldn't do much outside the power play. He couldn't field. He couldn't bowl. Nothing of the sort. But now I think Kennar is actually mature into a proper batsman. He can't average 40 by just playing reckless shots, as you said. So I think there's definitely potential, especially against full-length balls. Even if you overpitch a little bit, I think he hits you for 6, which is a good skill to have as an opening batter. So, yeah, I think if we're going to look at the next cycle, then Kennar is probably one to look at. Only 4 games so far, so not much to read into, of course.
Yeah.
I think he has good base skills to work on. Yeah.
I think what you've said there, so 4 games, there's 6 games left for the Talawars, 5 after tonight. It'll be interesting to see where Kennar's at by the end of the tournament. And like I said with Hemraj, like you said about Odean and Romario, I'd like to see some other leagues pick these players up. Kennar played in that T10, I think, in Abu Dhabi. And I think he had a few iconic innings there. So because T10 suits players like Kennar Lewis, who just go from ball 1. So I'd like to see a few other T20 tournaments franchises, whether again I'll call Sri Lanka Premier League, things like that. I think it's worth investing in some of these lower tier West Indians who seem to have a high ceiling. So yeah, I'd like to see Kennar in that sense. Oh, Sugar, sorry, I'm just looking in the comments now. So just to finish off, because we both do want to go watch this Trinbago Jamaica game. So Arthur says, do you think Simmons will be in the starting 11? Do you know what, Arthur? Someone on Twitter asked me for my current starting 11, and I had Simmons out of it. And I said that I'd rather see Gale open than Simmons.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. I just said that's what I'd rather see.
Yeah.
It's looking sticky for Simmons right about now. But I think Static and I will probably talk on him later on in the tournament. We might do an episode looking at some key players, and Simmons, he's worrying me. Anything on Simmons, Static?
No, same stance as you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Contact says that Kirk's McKenzie is into open. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I would have put
Jason Mohammed and Imad Wasim are in.
Jason Mohammed's in.
Yeah, Jason Mohammed's in.
My
Kumar Brooks is out for some reason.
Oh my, Jason Mohammed's in. Oh my God. What? Oh my God. Right, that's a TKR win today, people. But I'll go rally for Jamaica all the same. I would have opened with Joshua James, but obviously he's not playing as a pinch hitter. Last few comments before we leave, people. So Drew is saying, speaking of off-field presence, Fletcher seems a good character. Yeah, he is definitely a squad man. And that's also why he may go for the dressing room benefit. Contact, everyone would rather see Gale open, but it's not going to happen yet.
Exactly.
I agree. But you never know. Simmons has 5 more games left, I think, to do something in this tournament. And what everyone needs to remember about Gale, because there'll be people saying Gale shouldn't play, remember he's still got an IPL to go. So he could still find form if he plays in the IPL. We'll talk on Keegan Simmons at a later date, Mr. Lover, only because we've got to go. Right. Peoples, thank you for tuning in. Anyone who's watching this on a delay later on, maybe whilst this Trinbago Jamaica game is going on, leave your comments below on YouTube. If you still don't know who Static is, look at the description below. His @ and the link to his @ on Twitter is all in there. Subscribe to Caribbean Cricket Podcast on YouTube to follow the late nights at Warner Park episodes and the season that we're doing. We are back tomorrow. It's a rest day tomorrow in CPL. Static and I are back tomorrow. I think Santoki's going to jump on tomorrow as well. And we're going to look at the bowlers in the tournament. Quick teaser here. Ravi Rampal. Would we be taking him to the World Cup? But we're going to be looking at the bowlers tomorrow and seeing who can make a late claim for the World Cup in that sense. Thank you for joining us tonight. Static's been Static. I've been Michelle, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.